Welcome back. Our extensive coverage of the Alec Murdaugh double murder trial continues today. It is day 24, and oh, what a day it has been so far, and it continues after recess. The court is in recess right now for lunch. It's been an exhausting and eventful day, and our very own Andrew Davis has been there live at the Colleton County Courthouse covering this trial from the very beginning, covering this case, as a matter of fact, from the very beginning. And Andrew, let's unpack a lot of things right now.
Yeah, there was a lot going on today. There's a lot of detail with it. There's also a lot of emotion still that we got a little bit of crying from Alec in there, but we really got a lot of details. I'm here with Joe McCulloch, our legal expert. Joe, we're going to start at the end because it's very fresh for everybody's mind. The idea of lying and inventing the lie seemed to be a big moment there that I think the jury got a piece of.
Yeah, I think the prosecution's doing a very good job at this point, breaking it down second by second with Murdaugh, pushing him to say, when is that second that you thought you needed to begin lying? And he's done it in excruciating detail, but you know, it's being effective.
Yeah.
It's working.
What's interesting about that is we were talking about the recollection of that night as well, too, that it seemed to be questions about when he went and touched Maggie and Paul's bodies or not. But you don't really think that's as big of a deal just because of what was going on?
I think that the jury is likely to say to themselves, you know, if I came up on my family, brains everywhere and bodies everywhere, that I wouldn't remember the chronology. And the investigators' questions were not, tell me in exacting sequence. So that's a wash, I think. But this thing of, when did you begin to lie? And Murdaugh said, well, it was when I got paranoid. There's not really anything paranoid that we've heard, and we've heard that tape played twice today. You can't have it both ways.
Yeah, it's interesting using the oxycodone that he was taking. I mean, talking about 1,500 milligrams, talking to some of the drug experts I know, they said that's actually possible to still be viable at that point, which is pretty amazing to me, thinking about the amount. But you talked about something else, which is we've heard a lot about Bubba and Grady so far, and I think Bubba and Grady played in one more time.
Well, I think, you know, some people may say that Creighton Waters is meandering a little bit, but I think he's foraging. He's foraging for mistakes, and he I think Alec Murdaugh committed one when he said, I was there, the dogs were running around, I got the chicken out of the mouth, and Creighton said, well, did the dogs appear to sense anything? And Murdaugh at that point said something very telling. He said the dogs didn't seem to sense anybody else around they didn't know. And that, I think, resonated.
Yeah, absolutely, because that timeline's so confusing right now on how long he was there, whether he was there, what, a minute and a half or something when he went to talk to Maggie. I think all of that, and then you add in the dog factor, it does throw things off a little bit.
Yeah, and I think we spent all day yesterday talking about looking in the eyes of these financial victims, and that was repetitive, just done over and over, 2.5, 3 hours of it. But I think that what the prosecutor is doing is very wisely imprinting on this jury his closing argument. And I expect you're going to hear, ladies and gentlemen, you heard him say he could look a victim in the eye and still lie to them. And he, ladies and gentlemen, could look Pawpaw in the eye as he's blowing his brains out. He could look Maggie in the eye as he's shooting her like a wild dog.
Yeah.
I think that's the argument that you're going to hear.
I know one of the things you and I have talked about a lot is the speed that Creighton Waters is going at. You talked about it before, that he's going detail by detail. Is he, though, perhaps going too slow when he went through all the financial crimes this morning? He's got to keep this jury engaged, I would think, so Alec doesn't draw them in themselves.
Well, there are points where this prosecution process has been glacial, and I think that has an impact on the jury, and sometimes they get mad about that. I think they're ready to get back to the murder. We're now back to the murder.
And I'm as interested too, Alec is a lawyer, and we all have to remember that. He seemed to be controlling a lot for about an hour there on the stand himself, not just turning to the jury, but he seemed to have the lead, and prosecutors didn't have as much on him as he seemed to get back on them.
Well, he's pretty well prepared, whether that's a tribute to his legal acumen, his truthfulness, or his lawyer's preparation. You know, he did control the pace. He controlled the answers. He's been quite consistent in sticking to the answers, and that's been effective. and it's been frustrating, I think, to the prosecutor.
The term I keep hearing is if the record shows that, or what the record shows. He's clearly been prepped for himself, either like you said, or through his lawyers. Is that too much? Does this jury want to hear this man, or did they already get that yesterday and now he's got to focus on the details?
I think Creighton's sneaking in some zingers here and doing a good job. It's just the sheer weight and number of questions, the hours, the impact on any person accused of a crime in a crowded courtroom.
How does that affect it? We're going 5 full weeks now into our 6th week. What is that going through that jury's mind, and are they just going to rush to verdict, or do you really have to sort of focus on them getting something together? It's just been a long time for them to sit in those chairs.
There are so many variables. This is a small community. These are famous people, if not notorious people. I think it's hard to say where we end up and how long jury deliberations go on. They're clearly tired. There's a lot of gallery fatigue and jury fatigue, and things have become relaxed in a way that I don't see often in courts. The gallery was admonished this afternoon, or this morning rather, about outbursts. There were applause at one point this morning, or yesterday, laughter out loud. It's counterproductive to this process, which has got to be sober and serious, and you know, the judge set out to control that this afternoon.
And I know Jim Griffin's been trying to control that on the stand too, really he's not allowing Alec to answer some of these questions the way maybe Alec wants somewhere. Is the judge holding both sides accountable? I know that's a question we've had several times.
Well, I think the defense is much more active, aggressive, if you will, in objections, not many of which have been sustained. And there was a pretty serious objection about the prosecution commenting on silence, pitting the fact that Alec didn't come forward with this lie and correct it earlier against his right to remain silent. And that's a serious serious legal issue, not political issue. And that's going to be outlined and discussed out of the presence a little bit later this afternoon, apparently.
All right, well, we'll be here for all that. So Joe McCulloch, I appreciate it so much. So thanks so much. Kim, we'll toss it back to you. We've got a whole day full of testimony, more Creighton Waters, more prosecution, and maybe the defense gets in those witnesses that they've been wanting to as well.
All right, great job, Andrew. Get some lunch. In the meantime, court is in recess until 2:15 today. Our extensive coverage of the Alec Murdaugh double murder trial will continue at 2:15 today. We'll see you then.